In the cold winter of 1119, 9 exhausted knights stood before the gates of Jerusalem, their armors scratched, their horses tired, and their purpose uncertain. Among them was a quiet, determined man named Hugues who believed that God had chosen them for something far greater than themselves. They were so poor, in fact, that they shared a single horse end. Yet these 9 men would soon become the most powerful military and financial force in all of Europe. This is the real story of how a small band of warrior monks rose to unimaginable influence, and why the greatest kings of Europe trembled at the sound of their name. To understand the rise of the Knights Templar, one must understand the world they were born into. Europe was fractured, violent, and deeply religious. The Church had recently called for the First Crusade, and thousands of eager knights had marched across continents to reclaim the Holy Land. When Jerusalem finally fell into Christian hands, pilgrims began flooding into the city, but the roads were dangerous, filled with bandits, raiders, and remnants of defeated armies. Most pilgrims never made it. It was here, amid chaos and fear, that the 9 knights declared their purpose: to protect the Christian pilgrims traveling to and from Jerusalem. They took vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. They lived like monks, fought like soldiers, and devoted their lives completely to God. At first, no one took them seriously. 9 knights protecting thousands of pilgrims. It sounded impossible. But Hugues had a vision far larger than anyone could imagine. The turning point came when the Templars secured the support of King Baldwin II of Jerusalem. Baldwin granted them a base inside the temple, mount believed by many to be the site of Solomon's ancient temple. Living and training beneath such a sacred place gave these humble knights an aura of divine purpose. Still, they needed official recognition, and so Hugues de Payens traveled across Europe seeking approval from the Church. Many laughed at the idea of warrior monks, but one man did not. Bernard of Clairvaux, one of the most influential religious leaders in Europe. Bernard described the Templars as fearless knights of Christ and compared their mission to holy destiny. With Bernard's support, the Church officially recognized the Order of the Knights Templar at the Council of Troyes in 1129. Overnight, the Templars went from obscure warriors to holy champions backed by the Church itself. From that moment, their rise was unstoppable. As word spread, noble families from France, Spain, England, and beyond began sending their sons to join the order. Wealthy lords donated vast lands, castles, and gold to support the Templars' mission. Because the knights had taken vows of poverty, all wealth given to them became property of the order, and their treasury began to grow at an astonishing rate. The Templars quickly became not just warriors, but administrators, landowners, and financial managers. They established farms, vineyards, mills, and entire villages. They controlled ports along the Mediterranean, and everywhere they went, they brought order and discipline. But the greatest transformation came when they entered the world of finance. Because the Templars were trusted across nations, pilgrims began depositing their money with Templar houses in Europe, and withdrawing it in the Holy Land, an early form of banking. Kings began borrowing money from them. Merchants stored their wealth in Templar vaults. Nobles asked them to safeguard estates, settle disputes, and even manage kingdoms while rulers were away. The Templars had become the safest and most trusted financial network in all of medieval Europe. Their military power grew just as rapidly. Templar knights were feared on the battlefield for their discipline, courage, and unwavering faith. They rode into battle wearing white mantles, marked with a red cross, a symbol that struck terror into their enemies. They fought in the Crusades, defended castles, and led charges that changed the course of wars. They trained relentlessly, lived simply, and followed strict rules. If a Templar returned from battle, it was because he had won or been ordered to retreat. Surrender was forbidden. Fear was forbidden. Their reputation only grew. They became the shock troops of Christianity. By the 13th century, the Templars were no longer just knights, they were an international superpower. They owned thousands of properties across Europe. Their influence was so vast that even kings owed them money. But this power came with enemies. King Philip IV of France, often called Philip the Fair, was deeply in debt to the Templars. His wars had drained the treasury, and he saw the Templars' wealth not as holy property but as a threat. Philip needed money, The Templars had it, and so he made a decision that would forever change history. On Friday, October 13th, 1307, at dawn, Philip launched a coordinated strike across France. Templar knights were dragged from their beds, shackled, and thrown into prisons. They were accused of heresy, blasphemy, corruption, and unspeakable crimes. The accusations were largely fabricated, but Philip had the power and he used it ruthlessly. Under torture, some knights confessed to false charges simply to end their suffering. The church hesitated at first, but Philip's influence pushed the Pope to suppress the order. The once powerful Knights Templar were suddenly outlaws. Their lands were seized, their leaders executed or imprisoned, and their vast wealth vanished. Many believed Philip stole it, though legends say the Templars hid treasure long before their downfall. The last Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, was burned at the stake in 1314. As the flames rose around him, he cursed both the king and the Pope, declaring they would stand before God's judgment within a year. Shockingly, both men died soon after. The order was gone, yet its legacy only grew. The Templars left behind mysteries that still fascinate the world. Secret tunnels, encrypted symbols, lost fleets, hidden treasures, and rumored connections to later societies. But their true legacy is far simpler. A group of dedicated warrior monks who rose from humble origins to become the most powerful military and financial force of their age. They shaped European history, influenced the future banking systems, and created stories that continue to capture imaginations centuries later. The Knights Templar were feared, not because they were evil, but because they were independent, loyal to no king, and more powerful than kingdoms themselves. And that, more than anything, is why the greatest rulers of medieval Europe feared them.